Do you really need to say anything when your terrifying presence will say everything? Hello everyone, and welcome back down here to The Gamer's Den. With me, your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. And today, for the Storyteller's Guide, I wanted to just kind of wrap up talking about villains by going a little bit more in depth with that second category of villains I'd mentioned before. And I'd covered it a little bit with figures like Darth Vader, Fire Lord Ozai, your standard array of fascist kind of characters who are leading empires that are doing awful, horrific things across the settings that they're in. And these are handy and useful villains because it's relatively simple and direct storytelling. It's hard to get things wrong when it's simple and direct. And simple and direct does not mean it's not engaging. I mean, think about Fire Lord Ozai. We don't really see a whole lot of him other than a silhouette, but early on in the series what we know is he's leading the Fire Nation. The Fire Nation wiped out the Air Nomads and is working its way through the Earth Kingdom and has done tremendous damage to the Water Kingdoms. So, the other thing we know is that he is willing to scar his son, like permanently disfigure his face. So we know he's a pretty ruthless person, but as time goes on and we see the various other characters that are under his command, that fall underneath his rulership, Commander Zhao, his daughter Azula, the various other Fire Nation soldiers that have no problems causing immense harm or no regard for the damage that they cause in fighting in the pursuit of their goals. This all comes together to characterize him pretty well, because it says a lot about the man who is willing to hire, promote, and have these people advance his goals. That he sees these people as advancing his goals across the kingdoms and across this age of war. But that's not a lot about himself at all. We don't get much more characterization than that, other than he's ruthless. He employs ruthless people and he rewards them for their ruthlessness. He's a power-hungry monarchical dictator and he's a massive fascist jerk. And what's important is that towards the end of the series, when you see his baby pictures, those paintings of when he was a small, happy child, it's a moment that shows you, he's human. He was a human being. He was a happy child once. He had probably a happy, comfortable life in childhood and had friends, certainly must have fallen in love at some point, had children that you would think he had cared about at one point. But all that serves to do is two things. One, it's a reminder that human beings are capable of some of the most awful and terrifying things. And two, in spite of the reminder that he's human, it does nothing to quell the fact that he needs to be stopped. And the most effective way of stopping him isn't pleading with him, isn't negotiating with him. He's not concerned with any of those moral aspects, any of the moral implications of his war. He's getting ready to just completely annihilate the Earth Kingdom, just burn it to the ground, because if the people of the Earth Kingdom still have their land, they still have hope. So he's going to burn the land. He's going to reduce it to ashes and rebuild the entire world in his vision, in his image. And the only way to stop him is to fight him. Nothing else will do. Nothing else will settle things. And they pull the Deus Ex Turtle at the end and give Aang energy bending and everything so he doesn't have to actually kill the Fire Lord, but, whatever. Throw that part aside. The point is that he is big, powerful, terrifying. He's the culmination, the end result of leadership through 100 years of warfare, and he's going to keep things propelling forwards through warfare unless he's stopped. you don't really need much more than that. That's compelling. That's engaging. That's something that the players can really glom onto and get behind. Especially if you're doing good versus evil. It doesn't even have to be good versus evil at that point. You can still have evil player characters to go, oh, no. Burning everything down? How am I going to survive? How am I going to make money? Do I really want this fascist police state monarchical prick running everything? No, thank you. And even evil characters can find themselves aligning with good characters or lawful characters or, whatever wide spectrums of alignments that they might find themselves being. They can all unify and oppose this because this is a much greater threat, and they all really need to get their act together if they're going to stop somebody that powerful. And it's the same with Darth Vader. Again, in the original trilogy, there's really not a lot of characterization to Darth Vader. What you get is that he's big, he's bad, he's intimidating, terrifying, and powerful. He killed Luke's father. Everything is set up perfectly for you to want Luke to stop him, to stop the Empire. And the Empire are basically Nazis. I mean, the soldiers are stormtroopers, it's an empire, they have no problem genociding a whole planet. Everything is set up perfectly for you to realize, that needs to be stopped. Yeah, this rebellion, totally justified. You're immediately on board with everything. And that's good. That's engaging storytelling. It's simple, it's direct, you don't really need to do much with it, and anything extra that you do is just going to be icing on the cake. Like the twist that Darth Vader is actually Luke's father. And that's a great moment right there, because that's a direct relationship with what would essentially be a player character. That's a direct relationship right there that makes the fight that much more engaging and interesting. The villain himself doesn't really need a whole lot of characterization, but that direct relationship, through being a repeated ongoing threat over a long series of adventures, revealing this direct relationship to the character. It doesn't really do much with Vader other than, what it does is it radically redefines our understanding of Vader and also Luke's understanding of Vader. As he believed he knew everything. He thought he understood how all of this was working and how it was all set up. Vader betrayed and murdered his father. Vader's part of the Empire. He serves the Emperor. He's been lured to the dark side of the Force. He needs to be stopped. Oh shit, he's my father. Not only has Vader removed Luke's right hand, but now he's just completely upended everything that Luke understands and believes. It's given him something new to think about, something new to reach for. And what he wants to try to reach for is finding that good in Vader and trying to bring him back and redeem him, because through the Force he can sense that little bit of good there. Because instead of Vader striking him down, Vader tried to reach out to him and bring him over to the dark side with him to rule the galaxy as father and son. It's that moment where Luke recognized he still sees me as his son. I mean, he did this awful thing to him, but he didn't want to kill him. He wanted to bring him over. Now, part of it's also the Emperor's plan, but, rule of two with the Sith and everything, one master to embody the power of the dark side and the apprentice to crave it, yada, yada, yada. All of that still comes together. Luke still, through that moment, senses that little bit of good there and helps to eventually get Vader to redeem himself by stopping the Emperor. It's a great moment, and it's just that little bit extra that's icing on the cake. It's a villain redemption story. Now, that does get muddied later with the prequel trilogy, bringing up the fact that Anakin murdered a room full of small children, but, leave that aside for the moment. We're just focusing on the original trilogy. All of that comes together and makes Vader very interesting without doing a whole lot to really characterize him further. As the Empire doesn't have much to say about the setting. They are the setting. They are the overarching threat. They're the omnipresent, terrifying, imminent destruction for the Rebel Alliance, for so many other worlds. They're this just mass industrial fairly racist empire that has no problem just wiping out whole civilizations to achieve its goals. Even the understanding that Vader is Luke's father, it doesn't do anything to stop the fact that he needs to be, stopped. The Empire needs to be stopped. It needs to be ended. Luke and Vader's relationship doesn't really change much there. It only changes Luke's approach slightly, in that he wants to try to redeem his father, try to get him to come back to the light. And that redemption story, again, on top of everything else, is just that icing on the cake that makes things a little bit more interesting by providing that direct relationship from the antagonist to the protagonist, and you can do the same with your villains and characters. Have them be this ever omnipresent threat that recurs and the players have to deal with, usually in the form of running away from, or as they advance, staging a fighting retreat. Maybe they think, we can get him in an ambush now. If we can ambush him, get the drop on him, we can put a stop to him. And they realize, oh shit, that's not even enough. This guy's still terrifying and powerful. How are we going to stop him? And they run away injured, badly beaten. But they survive and they learn from it. They are able to level up and advance and become better at what they do and better prepared for when the final confrontation does come. And if you do establish that direct relationship with the antagonist to one of the characters, it's an opportunity for you to do some more storytelling. This can be a radical moment that fundamentally shifts everything that the player understands, that the character understands. And if your players are really good at this, they'll have that moment where the character's expressing doubt and they interact with the other characters and they come up with new dynamics between them as they develop their own interpersonal relationships. This kind of storytelling can be a lot of fun, and it's all done through simple, direct, overall story for the setting. You don't have to have anything super complicated to make this more engaging. But with that said, having villains like Caesar's Legion who reflect the setting, who have something to say for themselves and for the setting, is also very engaging. You just have to take a little bit more time to set that up. But there's nothing wrong with either approach, and in fact, I highly recommend that you juggle back and forth between the two, depending on the games and campaigns that you're running. And doing so helps to keep the stories feel fresh and alive and that much more interesting. But we're going to go ahead and call it there. We'll wrap everything up for now. What did you think? Go on down in the comments below and let me know. Have I missed the mark, or have I struck another bullseye here with a crit success? Go on down there and hit the like or dislike buttons if you feel like I didn't do a great job at all. And if you're new here or haven't done so already, go on down there and hit the subscribe button, become a regular member, join the alumni here at the Gamers Den. But with all that said, I've been your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Thank you all so much for your time, and you all have yourselves a good night.